This is the Shopware HubCast, where your host Sander Mangel and Dennis Höting, resident Community Hub expert and Director of Product Development at Shopware, uncover the stories of the people that make our community. This episode, they talk to Micha Hobert, part of the developer experience team at Shopware.
Micha, thank you for joining. You have been part of the Community Hub project from its very first inception, more or less, when it was still a twinkle in Dennis's eye. How did you get involved in this project?
Yeah, thank you, Sander, for having me. And Dennis, I was involved early on, as you mentioned, or from the beginning. As a technical writer at Shopware, I'm always around content, and for the Community Hub there was planned to have an academy, and with that academy we wanted to have some learning paths, and that's when Sue and me got involved in writing content for it.
Amazing. I think we worked together a little bit on some of the chapters. I think that was good fun. From its very first inception to, if you look where especially the academy part is now, what do you look back on with the most pride, or maybe with the most surprise on how that ended up evolving?
So from the beginning, the content looked pretty plain, and it evolved very much in terms of how the look and feel is like. So there was great work from the UX department, and also what we achieved in terms of automations of the content itself. So we have now a lot of workflows that are fully automating, doing spell checks and everything else. So I would say now the full look and feel of the academy part, of course, that's what I would say is great.
I would be interested. So you have a lot of experience in writing technical documentation, and you're doing that for years now. I think for all of us, writing actual educational content was a new thing. So maybe you can share, what do you think is the differences between documentation and learning content?
Yeah, that's right. It was quite a challenge to go into that role of writing content for the academy, because as we are writing already and reviewing content in the documentation, we know this content is already there. So rewriting it in a way that it is more educational is quite hard, because you always have the feeling of this is repetitive. We already have this. How should I rewrite this? Maybe I change this and that. So getting into that role was difficult, but I think it took me, like on the second learning path, I got a little bit of hang to it and found a way for myself. But everyone has their own technique to look into it, and we do have some documentation on that of how you should write and do it. But in the end, everyone has their own writing style, so everything sounds a little bit different, and you can recognize who wrote it in the end. But it gives a nice personal touch, and it was quite the journey.
I think that's even a strength of the learning pathways, and the fact that we openly share who is the author of a given learning path, and the authors are approachable for the community to discuss. And in every learning pathway, and in every unit, you can discuss about the content. We are interacting with the community, and the initial author of a learning unit is still responsible for taking care of maintaining it long term. I think that's also a good practice.
Yeah, for sure. Also the comment section, if you have something that is not right in one of the learning units or courses, for the listeners, please write us a comment, let us know, and we will quickly respond to it. We have a dedicated channel for it, so we get informed, and we'll get back to you. Yeah.
The show title is AI-powered content quality. I'm guessing we didn't start with that. We started with rather humble technical beginnings. So before we go into how we are leveraging AI for a bunch of stuff, can you walk me a little bit through what the early days of the Community Hub looked like in a technical sense, since we didn't take an off-the-shelf product, but we very much built it ourselves. What were the first steps we took?
So you mean the proof of concept phase where everything was defined? Yeah, the technical beginnings were quite interesting because there were the choosing of the tech stack, which Bojan was mostly responsible for and was defining the main part of it. In terms of the content, we took the approach that we also did for the documentation. So we have Markdown files, and those Markdown files are in a separate repository. So we are separating Community Hub as with a Nux project from the content repository. And that gives us a little bit more freedom of pull requests are not being blocked. They can work on the technical stuff, and we as technical writers and content writers can work on solely the content. And we are synchronizing these two. So we have a workflow in GitHub that is then synchronizing the content files, the Markdown files to Community Hub, to our hoster, and they get ingested basically. And then they get published. And that's how it works from a technical perspective.
Yeah. All right. So very much from a manual workflow, early days, more automation from what I hear, right?
Correct. Yeah, there are a lot of workflows at the moment in place in optimizing the content, the code, but also ingestion takes place automatically, but can also be manually triggered from an action that we have. And yeah.
One thing that I want to point out and emphasize and appreciate here, because you've been very active there, Micha. I think over the month we learned a lot about restrictions and constraints in our learning content. For example, we want to have like some summary part in the beginning with the learning objectives and stuff like that, or a certain style and stuff like that. And I am honestly impressed with the number of automated lint checks and other checks that we have in place right now that just make sure that while we emphasize individual style of the learning content writers, we still have some kind of base structure that goes through all of the, like a base quality line that we want to have for all the learning contents. And that is also highly automated. And I'm always kind of, when I'm digging into some content writing, I'm always, let's say, impressed about, okay, yeah, I have to do that as well. The system is telling me to change that, and I understand it. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the harder parts when you have like just Markdown files. You will have to structure it anyways because the system you're using those Markdown files on wants to show different parts. So you have front matter for that, for the meta information and other stuff. And we have our own schema files basically defining what should be there in different files. So we have the learning units, we have the courses, and we have the learning paths, and they have different schemas behind it. And yeah, if something is missing there, you will get notified for sure.
So Dennis, you called out the workflows. I'd love to know a little bit more. Okay, what are we doing? I heard linters. I'm sure there's other stuff that we're doing. Walk me a bit through what happens after I write the Markdown file and I give it to the great repository.
Yeah, sure. So in the beginning, we will check the files itself we have different rule sets. We are reusing some of the workflows that we have already from Shopware docs. That's the nice part of it, that we can reuse some of the ideas we had earlier on and can apply to other repositories. So we do have different rule sets on how the headlines should be defined, on, for example, how lists should look. Is it the dash, or is it an asterisk, or is it something else? Everything of that can be defined in a rule set, and we are passing that rule set in the repository. And if you, for example, forget a new line after a headline, then there will be a failure and it will tell you, hey, you forgot this and that. Automatically fix that, some of it, but some of it needs to be done by hand, for example. So we do have also make commands. So make fix will automatically fix everything that is fixable, and the rest will pop up in your console. And also you can run the spell checker locally. So best case would be you create your PR, you run it, or your branch, you run it locally and everything works fine. But if not, then the pipeline will tell you, for example, with the Markdown. For example, also we have a spell checker that is looking at a dictionary. We are using something that is using Pi spelling or Pi spell in the background. And this is then using LangChain or some dictionary repository. And if the word is not in there, it will be marked as it's not found. And so we will have to add it to our word list. That can be something really Shopware specific, but can also be something.
I wanted to ask, like, there must be a bunch of stuff you needed to add.
Yes, the files are growing and growing, and we are trying to eliminate things that are in code blocks, so they are not like some abstracts or classes, interfaces, names. That now works, but still at some point you are mentioning it in line somewhere. So sometimes it's a pain for the writer or the developers, like, oh, now the spell check is failing. What do I have to do now? And we also have, for example, a link checker that is checking all the external links that we are using to always be up to date, because nothing is worse than you read something, a course or documentation, and you're like, hey, take a look at this. If you have more questions, you click on it and it's gone. So then you are stuck here. And that's like the three most important ones, I would say. The other ones are quite boring. As I mentioned, the schema files, it's checking everything in front matter, because if something is wrong here, it cannot be correctly ingested from the community hub, from that repository. This also throws an error, but we want to know it beforehand, before we actually push it. It gives us a little bit of an advantage in the errors happening then.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the code that you put in doc blocks, do you check that?
So the code blocks we do not check. Actually, there was a PR that I made on, I think it was Pi spell or somewhere else, where I had this as a feature. Please add this, because for us it's giving us a lot of noise. And it was actually merged like 6 months ago, and I was so happy that. And this is the beauty of open source. Like, you can optimize it and just create an issue, work with different people from all different nations. Yeah, it was great. Now we have that.
Yeah, I love that. I think a lot of developers will also recognize this flow, right? It's something we're all very familiar with. Linters in a repository. It's tried and trusted approach.
Yeah, for sure.
And do you have any way to validate more or less the quality of the text? Because you're checking the spelling, let's say, but are there any checks that you perform to see if what was written has a certain standard of quality, or is that even possible?
So the quality that's not checked in a way that is automated, because mostly it's the structure of it. So it can check the grammar, punctuation, it can check the words. But then if that actually makes sense, it's quite hard. Even for AI, it's quite hard to define what is good quality. It depends on what the AI was fed with. If it was fed with a lot of faulty text, was learned with that, then it will give you a thumbs up, even if you are writing gibberish. And we quite often see that, and that's why the most important quality tool at the moment is reading. We have to read it as humans.
Yeah,
I think something to highlight here, to check and maintain the actual quality of the content. What that we are doing right now is we are basically testing the content with members of the community. So we give it to people of the community. Hey, Joshua Behrens, for example, who was quite active in one of the newer learning pathways, and we give it to him. Hey, can you check that? Does it make sense? Is there anything you want to add? Is something missing? And also internally, we check the content with members of the product department, for example, and much of the content is also used internally. So for onboarding of our own employees, they also utilize Community Hub for onboarding. And of course, as they are really close to us, they give us frequent feedback here.
Yeah, I love that. I think that constant feedback loop, that is what makes a project great.
Yeah, for sure. Great work from our internal developers and from the community. And we always get great feedback. and helpful. And yeah, we highly appreciate that.
Right. So Shopware has a focus on AI. We probably all have noticed that. And I know that that is also something that they want to bring into things like the community hub and documentation, what have you. Can you talk to me a little bit about the Docs Analyzer project?
Yeah, it was a proof of concept, and we're currently moving it to an MVP phase. It's a working title, so it could be something else in 4 weeks, 8 weeks, we don't know. But at the moment, the Docs Analyzer is a tool or a tool chain that will listen to PRs on the Shopware repository. So our main repository where all the code lies for Shopware, and if a PR is created, then a workflow is triggered and is basically grabbing the diff of that PR and is then checking on repository XYZ. In our case, with the proof of concept, it is checking the docs repository, so our documentation. Hey, is something in this diff that could be affecting the content that is written in the docs repository? And if so, then there is the notification, yes, here's something. And then there's also the part of some actions can be done. It can add a comment to the initial PR, or it can create a PR directly in the docs repository with changes, already knowing what kind of markdown files it needs to touch, and then already creating and changing some of the content here. And the first part would be the notification. So the developers who are creating the PR and us get informed, hey, over a channel, or it can be a comment, and then it can be decided manually, hey, I want to create a PR out of it, or I want to create an issue out of it. And then from there on, we move. Because it's the most critical part, knowing when something changes and if we actually need to do something with it.
Yeah, and that's massive, right? Because keeping docs up to date is just probably the most challenging part of building software, right? Because it might be a small change that you're making and it has downstream effects on so many types of documentation that are involved. So this is massive. Do you have any way of quantifying how much work this is going to save Shopware as a team, as an organization? Can you give an idea of that?
I didn't estimate it yet, so I'm not sure how much we are going to save in hours or in story points, how you would measure it. But it will have a great impact of being actually detecting those changes. And maybe in the beginning there will be more work. Actually, the quality will rise for sure, because we will detecting that something has changed and we need to act on it. And this will be also in the beginning, there will be false positives for sure, because you will have to adjust the levels and you will have to see the confidence levels, and there will be adjustments in the first, I would say, 2 to 3 months. But after that, after the machine is oiled and it's working and people know how to use it and configure it, it will for sure save time and, as I said, improve quality. And that's the goal in the end. We want to have the best possible documentation for our users.
Yeah, I think the magic here lies really in two parts. Not only will that tool be easing the effort of actually updating the documentation, because it identifies where to change documentation or even suggests changes in the documentation. So it's easier for the developers to actually alter the documentation as well while they are creating new features or changing features. I think this will raise the awareness of the importance of docs, and that for every change you make in the actual product, you have to really think about. We are aiding you here, but you have to think about what has to change in the documentation. Otherwise, we would really be in the drastic situation of having two people, you, Micha, and Sushma, making sure that our documentation reflects the actual product. And we have 100 people doing the exact opposite, right? So that's really important.
Yeah, and that's an uphill battle, right? The convincing developers of the importance of docs. It's not an easy one to.
Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned it's moving into the MVP phase. Do you already have an idea of the North Star? What is this going to look like in 2-3 years? Where are you taking it?
I have an idea. So in my head, I have an idea. I'm not sure if this is what Dennis thinks is also best, but yeah, I so in 2 or 3 years, I can imagine this is a fully acceptable way and method to do it also in other companies and other departments. So this is the way to go in my opinion, and for us especially, it will be fully integrated workflow that we have, and it's going to save us a lot of time. Developers will use it on a daily basis, and we will be faster with development also, because sometimes the issue is that there still needs to be documentation written, and it's blocking the feature to be released. So there's a patch release or like minor release coming out, and it's not documented yet. So we maybe hold it back till it's documented. And it will also increase our development speed for features for sure. And also what I think, as you said, in 2 or 3 years, North Star, there will be like a nice dashboard where you can search and you can see what worked best, and like have a whole overview of you can rate and fully optimize it and give feedback as many other companies do it. They humans are behind the desk and helping the AI to understand what's actually happening. And so we also have to give input and say, hey, this worked for us, or I will add a comment here and AI can learn from it, or simple thumbs up, thumbs down rating system that can be like all of the three, basically.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Dennis, what say you?
I think this will be a de facto standard, and there's a good opportunity for this to be aided with AI. Definitely, I think this will just massively lubricate the flow. That's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you see this also working further down? So now it's for the docs, but would this be something that can be extended to, for example, academy content, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so that's the plan already, and we already got some feedback from other departments. Hey, can we use this also here, and can we also use it here? So there's already demand on it, because it will save a lot of time and quality will increase, and people see the opportunity already, and that's the plan, because we have a lot of repositories. I'm not sure where we're currently standing with private. It's probably 150 or so. I'm not sure. So most of them are connected to Shopware, if not, let's say, 100 at least, and they can all benefit from that. It's then the question of how you set it up and what's the infrastructure behind it, because that can be quite intense. But yeah, there are also different departments working on other topics, on MCPs, for example, and on infrastructure and different vector store databases. And I think in the future, that's also something that then can be used and streamlined for all different departments, have the same at least vector store for Shopware, and then for the rest, separate ones.
Yeah, it sounds like a bright future. I love it. Maybe one question to close this down. How can community members contribute to the quality of what AI is outputting in all the tools that we're using? Is that feedback? Is that rating? How can they get involved?
So currently specifically for Docs Analyzer, not yet, but that's planned for the future. I mentioned the dashboard. So there will be like a rating system, how you know it already from, for example, GitHub. Copilot is answering something, you can do a thumbs up and thumbs down. I can imagine for the first iteration something like this, and then later like a rating system, or even comments to give a little bit more feedback, because thumbs down, what does it mean? Like, what should the AI then actually adjust, and giving context to it and say, you adjusted the admin build or something else, you should have adjusted the storefront build. That would then be the goal. But as we have such an active community, I bet this feature will come out as soon as possible.
Maybe to add to that, like for the existing, we always appreciate comments and ratings in the existing developer documentation. So for every single article, there is the possibility to give a star rating 1 to 5 and to leave a little comment. You can also get to the GitHub project and open up an issue, or also create a pull request to change something. So we are really working together with the community here, and that is something that's in place already. And we really appreciate every community input here.
Yeah, it's a good note to end it on. I think there have been many iterations of Academy of documentation in Shopware. I feel personally that now more than ever we are at a point where we actually can maintain it and improve it at scale. Right, it has always been a challenge to do this on this level. I think with the automation that you've been talking about, Micha, and the vision for Docs Analyzer, I do feel that we now more than ever, this is the moment where we can truly deliver back to the community what they have been waiting for all this time. So that's it's an exciting moment. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it that you wanted to share these insights, and we are excited to see what's coming out with Docs Analyzer in the next month.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me.